The Toronto Blue Jays have found a hidden gem. And as the Toronto Blue Jays prospect pool has gotten deeper and deeper over the past few months, and a lot of the Toronto Blue Jays prospects really starting to improve and shine, a recent prospect that they drafted in the most recent draft has soared up through the rankings, has entered the top 100 prospects list, and could be a huge factor for the Toronto Blue Jays going forward. So to break down what that could mean going forward for the Blue Jays, as well as discuss who that prospect is. Stay tuned for all that and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Nick Gosse. There's a lot to go over today, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the daily Jays content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 14,000 subscribers. Now, we have a lot to go over today, and let's start with, of course, the first topic, which is the Trey Savage and the Toronto Blue Jays. Really, the Jays have a hidden gem here with Trey Savage, and we obviously have covered him a couple of times on the channel. He was drafted in the most recent draft, and at the time of the draft, we said that the Blue Jays obviously got an absolute steal with Trey Savage, and the Jays' top prospect at that time was Ricky Tiedemann. But now, after some recent, obviously Ricky Tiedemann got hurt, you have a lot of the other Blue Jays prospects, getting PED suspensions like Aurelvis Martinez. Trey Savage has soared up the prospect rankings and has not only jumped into the Toronto Blue Jays' #1 prospect spot, but has jumped and soared into the top 100 and MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects. And the Jays finally, once again, have a top 100 prospect by the name of Trey Savage. You see this here just a couple days ago. Right-handed pitcher, a few days ago. Right-handed pitcher Trey Savage joins the top 100 prospect list following the graduation of Brooks Lee. And of course, it goes in and gives a scouting report. So, if you look at these grades here at the bottom, we know Trey is only 21 years old. He was drafted with the 20th pick with an ETA 2 years from now. But you look at these scouting grades, and they are extremely impressive. So these rankings are on a scale from 20 to 80, with 20 being the lowest, 80 being the best. He has a plus fastball at 60. He has a plus curveball, a plus slider, a plus splitter, and solid control. So he has 3+ pitches in his fastball, slider, and splitter. He's really started to do just very, very well. And obviously, they're not playing baseball. Trey Savage at this point had a very good college season. We know that. We'll get into the stats here in a minute. He's not playing baseball right now, but he had a very good college season. And that is kind of the question mark for him, was his control, how he'll be able to sustain that improvement, which will be very interesting to see how he does. But by jumping into the top 100 prospect pool, it's obviously a pretty big deal if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, because this is a guy that you drafted with your most recent pick. And like we'll get into in a minute here, the Jays didn't have, obviously they had for a brief moment there, Ricky Tiedemann was in the top 100, Aurelvis Martinez was in the top 100, but now they have another guy in there after Tiedemann and Aurelvis fell out. And if you're curious about, and you don't know too much about Trey Savage, you can check out our other videos, because we've made a couple other videos about Trey. But this is the most recent updated bio and projections for him. So you can see this here. He was the American Athletic Conference Pitcher of the Year. He has a quality 4-pitch arsenal highlighted by a mid-80s slider and cutter with more depth and lateral movement. His fastball peaks at 98 miles an hour, and he's 6'4", 225, has some effort in his delivery, but his control has been good, and his improved fastball command has keyed his success in 2024, and he now looks like a mid-rotation starter. So, obviously, a mid-rotation starter is pretty exciting for the Toronto Blue Jays. Anytime you can draft a player who can pitch in your rotation, and you draft a guy who really is a sustainable starter, and that's still yet to be seen for Trey Savage. We're hoping that he can do that, and that's his projection here. MLB Pipeline does a very good job, so shout out to them. But the most important thing here is that Trey has refined his control, he's refined his command, and his consistency is going to be the most important thing for him heading into next season when he starts to pitch games. And again, he's still a couple years away, but if you start to look now, we made a video on Arjun Amala a few days ago, as you start to look into the future of the Toronto Blue Jays, assuming you get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. locked up, you're now looking at a core that you can build around Vladdy. Something there what happens with Bo. You have guys like Spencer Horwitz who are very good. You have some of the other young guys, Joey Loperfido, that you can build around. You obviously have Varsho for the next handful of seasons, and they'll extend Varsho, of course, when his contract is over. But you're looking at now the prospects. You have Arjun Amala jumping in. You have Jake Bloss, who's probably going to pitch for the Blue Jays this year, if not next year for sure. You have, obviously, Trey Savage. And as you start to look into their top 10 prospect list, a lot of these guys have sorted up the rankings, and they did a phenomenal job at the trade deadline, acquiring a lot of their top prospects. Jake Bloss, Jonathan Clase, Cal Steven, Charles McAdoo, all guys who were acquired at the deadline. Now, you look at the ETA for those guys. Trey Savage, 2026. Elvis will probably play this year. Jake Bloss will probably also play this year, but into next year. Ricky Tiedemann, 2026. Arjun Amala, 2027. Cal Steven, 2027. Charles McAdoo, who's a guy you got for the IKF trade, who has been tearing the cover off the baseball in AA, is 2026 as well. And you start to look into the next phase of the Toronto Blue Jays baseball, and if they can build around Vladdy for 2026, 2027, when all those prospects are going to be called up and really start to thrive, you will have a new young nucleus and a new young core of players that you can build around surrounding all of these players. And that nucleus will be very, very good if even half of these prospects pan out to to what we expect they can be, and even half of what they expect they can be. Because if Ricky Tiedemann, if you have a rotation with Ricky Tiedemann, Jake Bloss, Trey Savage, it's a very, very good, if they live up to their expectations, that's a very good front line. Obviously, you still do free agent signings, you do all of these things, and you're just starting to see that the Jays have a hidden gem in Trey Savage. But they have a lot of other prospects as well that they can start to build around into the next step into winning baseball games. Because, yeah, they're going to try to compete next year, but their big window here is 2026 and beyond, when they can get all these prospects, when Vladdy's going to be entering his prime. Let's keep in mind Vladdy is 25 years old. He'll be 27, 28 years old by the time all these prospects are going to be ready in 2026, 2027. And it's super exciting the more you think about it. And focusing more in on Trey Savage, of course, in college for East Carolina, 11-1 with a 9.17 win to loss ratio, obviously, but a 2.03 ERA. Year before, 2.84 ERA. Year before, 2.5. He's been unreal, especially last season, and that propelled him into being the 20th pick. And a lot of people thought he was going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. The Jays were able to snag him at number 20. And their scouting department did very well. And you pair that with Arjun Amala having a really, really good recent stretch and just playing very well. The Jays have been impressed by Namala's development. You have Namala coming up. You had Francisco Lindor come out and speak out about how he thinks Namala can be the next face of the franchise. You have all of these things happening. And the young core for the Toronto Blue Jays is looking a lot brighter. It's still not a great top 15 prospect pool, but it's looking a lot brighter for 2026 and beyond than it was even just a few months ago when things were looking very bleak and you had guys like IKF, Justin Turner, Kevin Kiermaier on your team, and Yusei Kikuchi as well, who gave us the big return there. So let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Very, very exciting. You love to see it if you're the Jays, and it's just, you love to see it. Anytime a prospect, especially recently drafted one, hops into that top 100, it's definitely worth talking about. But let's focus in on now. Vlad makes history. I just want to bring this up here. In yesterday's game, he hit a bullet single, hit over 110 miles per hour up the middle. Fewest games to 500 career RBIs in Blue Jays history. And he came out and said, right after the game when they were with Hazelman, they were giving him, Hazelman was giving him his, his accolade, and telling him about his accolade, of course, sorry. He said, I love Toronto. He loves the Blue Jays fans. And at this point, just extend the man. Every Jays fan feels the sentiment. They need to extend him. They need to build around him, especially not only for this year, not only for next year, not only for the years after, but just for the future of this franchise, because this is a turning point for the Toronto Blue Jays this offseason. It's going to be one of the biggest offseasons in recent memory. So a lot to talk about regarding that. It's going to be a very hectic offseason, so make sure you stay tuned and hit that subscribe button. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. Do you want to see Trey Savage pitch soon for the Blue Jays? What do you think his ceiling is? Let us know, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. And shout out to Vladdy for making history.